Yeah, for sure. My dad was severe alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so my dad, my biological father, I grew up without him, with my biological mom, and then taken out of that home and grew up in foster care. But I actually met him for the first time when I was 18 years old. I found him online, Googling myself.
Oh, wow.
I found my grandfather and it was obituary. But he had the same exact name as me.
Yeah.
Turns out like I was the third.
Oh, wow.
And so I found an obituary. And I remember I was young. I was 18. So I was like, what? There's an obituary for me? And so I click on it and it's a picture of some old man. And then I was like, oh, that must be like a relative.
Yeah.
And I start reading the surviving relatives. And a couple of the people I recognized, I'm like, oh, I think I have an aunt named that. Then I saw his name, my father's name. And I was like, this is my grandfather's obituary. I'm reading right now. And I never met him. Like I have 2 or 3 memories when we were kids.
Yeah.
He left at a young age. And I knew he was an alcoholic and I knew that he had, and I always wondered, like, did he go on to have this other life? So through that, I found the relatives who I found my sister, my biological sister for the first time. It was kind of a crazy story. When I was 18, I find all this out. I call them and my sister says, hey, why don't you, she wanted me to fly at first. I ended up greyhounding it.
Yeah.
It was super poor.
18.
yeah, exactly. I was working at Pizza Hut and there's no way I was going to do that, but I could afford a Greyhound ticket. And she was living in the time in Lexington, Kentucky. And she said, just get to me. I have a car. I'll drive you to him and you'll meet your dad. And I was like, all right. This time my brother was in prison. And so I would have taken, I was totally abandoned, excited. I'm like, I get to meet my family, man.
Yeah.
And I did. It took about 3 days to get there. Because the bus breaks down twice. One of them was in Memphis, which is the most humid place in the world. We're on the side of a highway. It was terrible. Normally it would take like 36 hours was the normal anticipated bus ride, given the breaks in between and stuff. Yeah. And it's a long trip. We ended up taking me 3 days to get there. I finally get there, hop in a car, like to go meet my dad, which is like I just got off this Greyhound bus ride. And I meet my dad for the first time. This is how crazy it is. I go to a cabin, meet my aunts. They don't tell him that I'm coming.
Oh, wow.
I knew, obviously, but they don't tell him. I don't know this. So I walk in, and there he is. And he's just standing there. And he looked at me like, oh, he knew my sister, who I just met again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, Angela's here. And then they ask him, like, hey, do you know who this is? And he just kind of looks at me, and he goes, I'll never forget this. He said, I don't know, one of my sons? And like turned away. And I remember thinking like, oh, I was 8. That should have crushed me. And he was already hammered drunk. And they were like, hey, let's give them, they were like, it was like being in a zoo. Like they were like, oh my, like they were watching me. It was so weird. And I was like, believe it or not, I was kind of a shyer kid. And I was like, this is a kind of a weird moment for me. And they're like, let's give them some space. And I went outside, and at the time I was smoking cigarettes a lot. He was smoking. So I was like, this could be a thing. We'll like smoke a cigarette together.
Talk it over.
So yeah, it was so, I had a million questions my whole life. I had so much hate for him and like all these questions. Couldn't ask any of them, man. It was a weird moment. And he was just like, so how you been? And like, he never asked my name or like, he just thought like, oh, it's one of my kids, I bet. He ends up going back inside without sparing all the details. They start showing me pictures of people. It was just the weirdest moment ever. He ends up pissing himself in the chair, just sitting there. And then he didn't even like, he just kind of looked over and he's like, hey, just pissed myself. So I'll probably sit here for a while. Like it was just like a weird moment. And I was like, whoa, like what is going on? And at the time I was drinking a lot. I was 18. Yeah. And that evolved into I did drink even more. But I knew, I'm like, this is me. Like, this is my future. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I realized, like, I don't want that for myself. Yeah. But I come from an alcoholic parent. I've been to rehab, man. I went to rehab for drinking too much. I took a bunch of painkillers. I went to Midland. So I've been through a facility. And this is all stuff. This is how I got my job. And in my job now, I work specifically with those people. Mm-hmm. And I tell everyone I work with, what I do, like, I'm a model of recovery, right? But it's my own version of it. And I would never tell you to do what I did because I'm not you. Yeah. I can give you real stories. I can give you resources. I can tell you what I would do. I can give you a suggestion based off who you are, what you should do. Mm-hmm. But at the end of the day, like you're making your own story right now. Yeah. But I get it, man. I get it. Like there's just, and I'm not a parent. You know what I mean? So these things are like, it's important that you kind of take the control, man.
Yeah. It was
999, 1,000. Oh, hey, I didn't see you guys there. Just doing 1,000 curls, nothing crazy. You know what is crazy? You guys haven't subscribed yet. So let's get on it. Hit that subscribe button. 1,001,